Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
The Supreme Court today handed down its final decisions for the term. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The most significant of those is the ruling curbing the national injunction against President Donald Trump's birthright citizenship order. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen talked to a local legal expert about what that means.
The court today largely sidestepped the merit of the birthright citizenship order. Instead, it issued a ruling to curtail federal courts from issuing nationwide injunctions. In a 6-3 ruling, the court ruled that the lower court exceeded its power. Justice Amy Coney Barrett, writing for the majority. When a court concludes that the executive branch has acted unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power too. In a dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said the ruling created a legal regime where no rights are safe. Writing, today the threat is to birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens or prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship. President Donald Trump calls the ruling a victory against judges.
These judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system.
San Diego legal analyst Dan Eaton says the ruling means that injunctions can now only apply to the party that initiated the lawsuit, be it the state, an individual, or a group.
What the order means is that if you're going to challenge an executive order, you'd better do it as a class action if you don't want it limited.
It also means that presidents will now have freer hands in issuing executive orders without worrying that a district judge will block them.
That kind of a broad invalidation of a presidential executive order will have to wait until ultimately the Supreme Court weighs in.
Eaton says that also means that previous nationwide injunctions against Trump are also invalid. As for the issue of birthright citizenship, California Attorney General Rob Bonta says the state's case is still moving forward.
I'm hopeful that the court will see that a patchwork of state injunctions where birthright citizenship stands for some states but not others would inevitably create administrative chaos, sparking widespread confusion and spurring questions.
California sued the Trump administration over the birthright citizenship order in January. Eaton says the Supreme Court will have to settle the issue sooner or later. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
The Afghan refugee detained after his first asylum hearing in San Diego this month is one step closer to being deported. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer says he's one of thousands of Afghans seeking asylum in the U.S. from the Taliban.
What's your name?
A San Diego immigration judge dismissed Syed's asylum case yesterday. He asked only to be identified by his first name because he fears reprisal from the Taliban. The former contractor worked with the U.S. military in Afghanistan. He says he fled the country after the Taliban killed one of his brothers and started looking for him. Sean Van Diver is the San Diego Navy veteran who co-founded Afghan Evac, the nonprofit that helps resettle Afghans. He says Syed is a victim of immigration politics.
The reason why ICE is moving to dismiss cases is that they just don't like that there's so many migrants here.
Syed came to the U.S. legally last year through the San Ysidro Port of Entry. He used the now-defunct CBP-1 app. He applied for a special immigrant visa and for asylum. This month, a DHS spokesperson said the government doesn't have evidence Syed worked with the U.S. in Afghanistan. Contracting and employment records viewed by KPBS indicate he did.
We know that the contract is valid. That's all. It's all good. I think they just didn't look in the right place. And DOD doesn't have records for anybody that served them. So they're being semantics.
And another one of his brothers was granted asylum for the same reasons.
So his brother's asylum case just got through, so it's the same thing. They owned a company together.
DHS did not immediately respond to questions about the case. With this case dismissed, in the coming days, Syed will have to convince an asylum officer he has a credible fear of being in Afghanistan. If the officer agrees, he starts the asylum process all over again. If they don't, he'll be removed from the U.S. Syed is currently in custody at the ICE detention center in Otay Mesa. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Immigration raids throughout the country have sparked protests and uncertainty. One in Oceanside left a family torn apart and a community shaken up. That story in just a few minutes. The USNS Harvey Milk will be renamed after a World War II sailor who received the Medal of Honor. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced the ship's new name will honor Navy Ship Chief Petty Officer Oscar V. Peterson. Before becoming the first openly gay man elected to office in California, Milk was a naval officer and served in the Korean War. The USNS Harvey Milk is a supply ship crewed by civilian merchant mariners. Several other ships of its class, all built in San Diego and named for civil rights leaders, are also being targeted for renaming.
Well, we had a warm weekend, then we had a cool weekend. Now we're going back to what is a pretty quiet weekend for us. Tonight, 63 for the low with a few of those clouds coming in. The marine layer is our typical June gloom, so very much to be expected. We'll see what our forecast brings for the weekend and beyond coming up.
Thousands of grocery store workers across San Diego County may go out on strike within the next few hours if they don't reach an agreement with management. KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us about the points of contention that could lead to the first grocery strike in more than 20 years.
All appeared normal inside the Ralph's store in Hillcrest this afternoon, but by tomorrow, these employees may be outside the store, walking a picket line.
It's just very frustrating because it's been since March. We've had 21 bargaining sessions, and our members wanted to get a deal done.
The stores in question are Albertsons, which owns Vons and Pavilions, and Kroger, which owns Ralph's. Brent Beltran, who's the communications director for United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 135, says store management have been needlessly dragging their feet.
They've been slow rolling it, and it's been very difficult for us to get something done because they're going through that process.
We reached out to both Kroger, Ralph's, and Albertsons Vons for comment. As of our deadline, we hadn't heard back from Ralph's, but Albertsons did send a statement which says, in part, we respect the rights of workers to engage in collective bargaining and are negotiating in good faith, and allegations of unfair labor practices are without merit. Unfair labor practices. That's the main issue at hand in these negotiations.
Most of it has to do with illegally surveilling our members. They're not supposed to follow members around when they're talking with union reps. Another one is that they have not allowed certain members to wear union garb.
In addition to the labor practices portion, Beltran says they're also negotiating over a new contract. These negotiations are happening throughout Southern California, basically from Bakersfield to the border. 7,000 of those workers are in San Diego County. Beltran says they'll keep negotiating into the night if necessary, but by tomorrow, he says there will either be an agreement or about 45,000 workers across Southern California will begin their strike. John Carroll, KPBS News.
As the last day to vote approaches, the special election for San Diego County's District 1 Supervisor is getting personal. The top two candidates in the race are Paloma Aguirre, the Democratic mayor of Imperial Beach, and John McCann, the Republican mayor of Chula Vista. And they have been firing heated accusations at each other during press conferences, on the debate stage, and over social media. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki went through some of the major claims both candidates posted to Instagram and double-checked their sources. And he joins me now. Corey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Maya.
So let's start with one of the biggest claims. Paloma Aguirre says John McCann says the county should cooperate with President Donald Trump's immigration deportation raids like the one in South Park. So what did you find about this claim?
Yeah, this claim by Aguirre is a little misleading. It is true that McCann, who is a Republican, had been largely silent on the South Park raid until recently. Of course, on May 31, heavily armed Department of Homeland Security officers entered an Italian restaurant in the South Park neighborhood of San Diego and arrested workers using flashbang grenades to push back a crowd of protesters. At first, McCann largely declined to comment on the raid, and the days after the incident, campaign officials told City News Service that he was on on Navy duty and was not able to comment. But during an election debate last week, he called the Trump administration's use of force in South Park unacceptable, weighing in for the first time, and said he supported San Diego's immigrant communities. Now, it is true that McCann has repeatedly said the county should be cooperating with federal immigration authorities. In May, he told KPBS that local agencies should be able to tell immigration officials if they have someone in custody who has committed a violent crime.
Okay, so let's take a look at another claim, please, Corey. Now, this one from John McCann. He says Paloma Aguirre has been delinquent on her property taxes for over 4 years. Is there any truth to this?
Yeah, this claim by McCann is also a little misleading. Aguirre has regularly paid most of her property taxes over the last 4 years. But it is true that in 2021, she failed to pay part of a separate fee tied to the purchase of her condo in Imperial Beach. The total amount Aguirre owes now, including interest, is around $2,600. Earlier this year, after McCann posted about the tax payments, she set up a 5-year payment plan to repay that amount. Now, this is important, McCann says, because property taxes are an important source of revenue for San Diego County. They make up around a quarter of the county government's income. Just to note, though, as mayor of Imperial Beach, Aguirre makes about $9,600 a year. McCann, as the mayor of Chula Vista, makes about $157,000 a year. He also owns 2 real estate companies, each valued at over $1 million.
Okay, so here is another claim, this one by Aguirre. She says John McCann wrote a secret letter to Donald Trump to release a convicted felon. Then that felon gave John McCann a hefty contribution when he ran for mayor. So what can you tell me about this one?
Yeah, Maya, this claim is true. The claim here is based on reporting by the nonprofit news organizations iNewsSource and Voice of San Diego. During the first Trump administration, they found McCann wrote a letter asking the president to commute the sentence of a South Bay business owner who was serving a 1-year federal prison sentence after she was convicted as part of a conspiracy to sell counterfeit energy drinks. In 2021, Trump commuted the remainder of that business owner's sentence. And in a statement, the White House specifically cited McCann's support as a reason for the commutation. A year later, iNewsSource found that that same business owner donated to McCann's campaign for mayor and groups allied with him. And earlier this year, she was convicted again on new federal fraud charges. And this is significant because McCann is really pitching himself as the public safety-focused candidate and a strong supporter of law enforcement.
Okay, so let's take a look at one last claim. John McCann says Paloma Aguirre wants to raid the county's emergency reserves. Corey, is this true or is this false?
Yeah, this one is also true, Maya. Aguirre says she supports leaning on the county's rainy day savings or reserve funds as Republican members of Congress consider slashing federal funding for safety net programs like Medi-Cal. She's been pretty open about this. Now, the idea of dipping into the county's reserves has divided the current Board of Supervisors, with Democratic supervisors Tara Lawson-Remer and Monica Montgomery Stepp supporting the proposal, and Republican supervisors like Jim Desmond and Joel Anderson pushing back. McCann agrees with that perspective. He thinks it's irresponsible to draw on the county's savings and thinks the county should be looking for places to cut spending instead. But Aguirre sees this as an emergency, as what she's called the full-blown storm created by the Trump administration and Congress, and says this is the time to use those rainy day funds.
Gosh, some great research there. We really do appreciate it, Corey. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Maya.
And you can find the full fact-checking report at kpbs.org/voterhub, and that is where you'll also find in-depth interviews with both candidates on the most important issues facing the South Bay. And if you're not sure where to cast your ballot, you can find District 1 voting locations there.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, how the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way for President Trump to implement a host of policies judges have blocked. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A teenage brother and sister, both U.S. citizens, found themselves handcuffed during an immigration raid that was caught on video in Oceanside. Agents were after their father. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne talked with the brother about the raid that's left him without either parent.
On June 18th, the Robles Ortega family woke up at 6 a.m. to shattered windows and loud noises.
They threw, 2 flash grenades in here. They flew the drone in here, broke windows, and they were not saying who they were. We didn't know who it actually was. We were thinking it was ICE. Well, we were correct.
The Oceanside apartment where Kevin Robles lives with his family was surrounded by uniformed agents holding firearms.
I was the first one who got taken out. they just grabbed me, cuffed me, took me out. Same thing with my sister, my dad, and my mom. I mean, I didn't get to see no warrant.
Robles, who is 17 and a U.S. citizen, was handcuffed. So was his 14-year-old sister. After neighbors intervened and informed agents of their age and status, the minors were let go. But Robles' mom and dad were not.
It was something something hard for me to process, knowing that both of my parents were taken and I didn't even get to say bye or not even one word. I mean, all they said was, "I love you." That was the last thing.
Robles says the warrant they eventually got showed agents were looking for his father, Arnoldo Robles. They ended up taking his mother, Angelica Ortega, as well. Both had been in the U.S. for over 15 years, but without legal status. Court records show Arnoldo was convicted for a DUI in 2023, but it is unclear if that is what led to the detention warrant. We reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for details of the arrest and have not heard back.
We're more than just neighbors. We're like family. They help us. We help them.
Ada Rocha is a neighbor and witnessed the arrest. She said many neighbors and children were scared of what was going on.
I said, why are you guys going to the extreme? If you guys are just executing a warrant, why are you guys, like, there's murders there or like drug dealers or something worse? Like, just do what you guys gonna do without all the excessive.
Rocha says the events have left the community in fear and a family in pieces.
They're good kids, and it just breaks me that, like Kevin said, now he has to be an adult. It's summer, and instead of them thinking, oh, I'm gonna go with my friends here or go out and have fun, now he has to think about, I need to provide for my little sister.
The community has gathered around the family by raising money for legal fees and painting a mural behind their apartment complex. The mural reads, "No one is illegal on stolen land," and has a portrait of the parents.
Like, my parents were actually loved. My dad was a landscaping guy for, I'm gonna say, a couple properties in the neighborhood, and he was a good guy. I mean, he'll help anybody out. I mean, they'll try and give him money, and he'll deny the money. He'll say, like, oh, it's coming out of his heart. As well as my mom. My mom will give anybody food.
Robles has had very little communication with his parents, who are being held in separate facilities. Since the arrest, the neighborhood has been on high alert, and so have community activists.
People keep on asking us, what can we do? And we're like, we get out on the streets.
Juanito Xochipilli Conoro is with the Human Rights Council of Oceanside, a grassroots community organization helping families stay informed.
So I've seen more younger people come out, more people coming out to protest, because they want to do something with this energy that they have.
On Saturday, the council plans a community patrol training in Oceanside to teach people about observing, documenting, and responding when ICE or law enforcement is present in communities. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsome is suing Fox News, alleging defamation, and he's asking for $787 million in punitive damages. Newsome says the network knowingly aired false information about him around the time of the National Guard was deployed to Los Angeles amid ICE protests. The lawsuit alleges Fox News anchor Jesse Waters lied about Newsome and Trump speaking on the phone when there was no phone call. It also argues the program deceptively edited a video to support that claim. Fox News called the lawsuit frivolous. San Diego's latest and largest safe parking lot is welcoming people who are living out of a vehicle and are looking to rest for the night. H Barracks opened on May 31st, and our media partner KGTV got a look inside. Jewish Family Service runs the City of San Diego-owned site in the Midway District. KGTV talked to a man named Hans who is staying there. He told them he bought an RV and planned to travel the country during retirement, but then he was diagnosed with cancer, and all his money went to chemo and radiation. Now he has a place to rest while he waits to find out if he is cancer-free.
I needed a place where I could come take care of what I needed to take care of and rest. And a lot of people out there are the exact same way.
Sometimes people are retired, living on a fixed income, and getting pushed out of their fixed income living situation. People who are unable to pay rent, maybe recently evicted. Individuals who maybe have had, like Hans, a medical situation, which put him in a situation where suddenly he had to prioritize finding a safe place to sleep while he focused on his health.
So far, 24 people have signed up to stay at the lot, which can serve up to 190. Jewish Family Service says they're checking that each individual meets their intake requirements. New projects in Imperial Beach and South San Diego aim to protect bicyclists and pedestrians from collisions with drivers. iNewsSource intern Teal Davis explains.
A bikeway connection from the San Ysidro Port of Entry to the Bayshore Bikeway, which runs along the Silver Strand, is nearing completion. Construction for the project began in 2023, and crews have been adding curb extensions at intersections and speed bumps in the area to encourage drivers to slow down. The connection roadways will also receive bend-outs, a road feature that brings cyclists away from the road and closer to sidewalks at intersections.
That is the goal of the city, is to make our streets safe and family-friendly.
There were 46 accidents involving cyclists in Imperial Beach from 2015 to 2022, according to data from the San Diego Association of Governments. With the updated infrastructure, SANDAG, which is in charge of regional transportation projects, anticipates seeing an increase in ridership.
That is the point of, when we're designing these, the bicycle infrastructure is enticing more people to feel safer riding their bikes and being on the road.
The new 6.7-mile bikeway connection is estimated to cost $31 million. The final construction for the project is currently underway, with crews expected to complete the project this summer. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource intern Teal Davis.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS, and this story is part of our Public Matters partnership. You can find out more at kpbs.org/publicmatters.
As we talk about things through the days to come, we will find very few changes. For a few of us, we'll see a subtle change in the numbers, but it's pretty limited as to what we see. We will be keeping our June gloom, the marine layer, continuing for us as we look through the days to come, and also some warming into the weekend. But then after that, there's just enough of a cooler factor into next week that a few may notice, though not a lot of us. As we take you through tonight, 63 the low in the city as you work towards Escondido. We go to 55 for that low, 60 in El Cajon, and as you head towards Borrego Springs, 72 for the overnight temperature. Still a lot of warmth in place across the southwest as a whole tomorrow. Really no change in that, and we keep things dry. Limited monsoonal moisture too for those of us that are in the Four Corners region, but ultimately then as we work our way throughout tomorrow in our area, Escondido making it to 88, the city 74, Chula Vista 75, and Mount Laguna going back into the mid-70s as well. Coastal communities, because of that marine layer, we barely change the numbers at all. We're going to be in the mid-70s throughout the days to come, which includes right into the middle of next week. Where we see some of the fluctuation will be our inland communities. We start our Saturday in the upper 80s, but by the time we get into early next week, we'll be back to the lower 80s, which is where we'll hold things as we push into the middle of the upcoming week. So that's going to be our biggest temperature swing across the regions. Mid-70s for the mountains as we head through tomorrow, then back to the lower 70s for Sunday and beyond, especially into Tuesday. Could actually try to warm up a little bit into Wednesday with some more sunshine, but ultimately a lot of locations, again, holding a fairly constant temperature, which is true in our desert communities, making it to the triple digits and staying there. We're out of the 110 range, but still above 105 each of the days. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
This week on KPBS Roundtable, we bring together a few journalists covering one of the things that we love the most about San Diego, and that is food. You can hear all about the new North County restaurant that earned a Michelin star, plus dining and drink trends to watch out for this summer. Listen now at kpbs.org or wherever you get your podcasts. As Pride celebrations continue around the country, one often overlooked sector of the community is the elderly. And while aging comes with a wide range of concerns, both financial and physical, older LGBTQ+ individuals have specific challenges. Karen Kafa shares what advocates say medical professionals can do to provide care.
It's a rapidly growing population with a unique set of challenges.
There are over 3 million LGBTQ older adults in this country, and we're estimating that is probably going to grow to over 7 million by 2030.
According to the American Association of Retired Persons Dignity 2024 survey, the largest concern for older LGBTQ plus adults is social isolation, which could mean lacking the support they will need as they age.
The LGBTQ community is more likely to be single, less likely to have children, and some of those social connections that we would assume from a family or biological connection aren't there.
The survey also found a number of queer adults feel vulnerable in healthcare spaces, particularly trans and non-binary people, with a third saying their quality of care has been compromised.
Anytime you find a new doctor, you have to come out again. And it's a challenge sometimes to find good healthcare professionals who understand all the needs of the community.
Ernesto Finales with the nonprofit advocacy group SAGE says medical providers should take time to understand where these patients are coming from.
I think part of that is really connecting with the community and making sure that their voices are elevated.
And for members of the community looking to take control of their future,
it really is a matter of planning, not only in terms of caregiving and who is able to care for you as you age, but also making those financial decisions so that you're prepared to make the decisions that you want.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Tripolsi. Have a great weekend.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.